Hi everyone, and welcome to your next session of your business administration course with Plato training. So today's session is going to be looking at progress and problems that we could have when we are working in business administration. So your aims and objectives of today's session are to demonstrate the importance of reporting progress and problems to colleagues, to team leaders and line managers at work, and to outline the importance of following instructions at work and show what could happen if we do not follow instructions at work. So on the screen in front of you here, you can see the day-to-day activities in an office. So what I've compiled here is a list of activities, different activities that could be done in an office environment. So let's have a look through some of these. So carrying out duties such as filing, typing, copying, binding and scanning. You could be organising travel arrangements for senior managers or writing letters on behalf of other staff. You might have to book conference calls and rooms and taxis and couriers and hotels. It could be for one event, or it could be the responsibility that you have to book, different couriers for different activities that take place at the workplace. You might have to process expenses sheets and invoices and make sure that the details on there are correct. Monitoring stationery levels, ordering stationery, covering reception if required, maintaining both computer and manual filing systems. There's nothing worse than going to a filing system that is not very well maintained. You want things to be in the correct order. You might have to provide information for colleagues or inquirers. Wherever you're working, you'll be handling sensitive information, which you'll do in a confidential manner. You may have to take minutes of meetings. You might be responsible for coordinating office procedures, replying to emails, telephone calls, and face-to-face inquiries are going to be common. Develop and update administrative systems to make them more efficient, so doing sort of Windows updates and other software updates. Resolving problems, sorting out the post, answering calls and transferring them, and you could be managing staff appointments. So there's lots of day-to-day activities on that list, so we're going to have a look at some of those in a little more detail. So every day is going to be different when you're working in an office. So although we've looked at a list of administrative duties that you could be undertaking, it could be that you're taking, 30-40% of those, you could be doing 100% of those. Every office does run differently, and although we've looked at sort of a daily routine sheet to show what might happen in day-to-day offices, the likelihood is that no 2 days will be the same, and you'll have to prioritise tasks as and when required. And this leads us on nicely to thinking about how we are going to manage our time when we are in work. So why is it important to manage your time at work? Well, first and foremost, it's going to help us to get the jobs done in the given time frame. If we are not working to get the jobs done in the given time frame, we're either going to go home and leave jobs that are undone for the following day, which means the following day's tasks are going to be behind as well, or you're going to have to stay after work to get those jobs done. Neither of those things are ideal. You need to be efficient at work. This is how your work will measure your progress as well, to see if you're going to pass probation, perhaps go from a temporary to a permanent contract as well. You need to manage your time because you need to make sure that you've got enough time to complete all of the duties that have been required by your manager to complete that day. So if you think about it, if you are spending an hour writing one letter or one email, that's not going to be productive. you're going to have a lot more than just one email to write. But if you spent 1 hour taking minutes of a meeting and writing a report of those minutes, then that would be classed as productive. So it's about managing your time effectively, prioritizing the tasks that you need to do, and also thinking about how you can do each task in a reasonable enough time frame so that you've got enough time throughout the day to complete the required tasks. So let's have a look at you managing your time on specific tasks. So how could you manage your time when you are answering the phone and transferring the caller? So you're going to need to answer professionally, but how would you do this? You'll need to find out who they wish to speak to, but what would you say? You'd need to put the caller on hold, but what would you tell the caller? You'd need to dial the person and see if they're available. What might you ask the person that you're dialing? You need to advise the caller. What would you say? And then you need to transfer the call. So how would you do this? When you're answering the question, I would like you to think about those points that I've put in bold, those extra questions. That's going to add strength to your answer. Rather than just listing out the points that I've given you, I want you to really think about the finer details here. How could you manage your time when you are monitoring stationery levels and ordering office supplies? So you'd need to check the stationery about once a week, roughly. But which day would you do this? Is there a day where you think it would be better to do this? Ask the team and see if they need anything specific ordering. So think about what method you might use to ask them that question. Are you going to ring them all? Are you going to send an email? How will you know? You'll need to also set a date and time to order the stationery. So how often is logical? This will obviously depend on the size of the organisation that you're ordering for. And when is a good date and time to order that stationery? So is it going to be good to do it once a week, once a month, once a quarter, so every 3 months? Receiving and distributing and sorting out the mail. So you need to sort out the post logically. So how would you do this? Would you do this by alphabet? Would you do this by floor? If it's a large office building with numerous floors, would you sort this out again via alphabet or via floor? You should always prioritise some people that work in that organisation. But have a think, who would you prioritise and why? So you're now going to complete your first question for today's work. So look at the office activities that we've just looked at previously. You need to describe ways that you could manage the tasks to ensure they're completed on time. So when you're describing, do remember to use your full sentences to develop a paragraph. So answering telephone calls and passing the call information to the relevant person, monitoring the stationery levels and ordering office supplies, and receiving, sorting and distributing the post. So you're going to tell me how you are going to manage your time, manage the tasks to ensure that they are completed on time. So go back for a moment and have a look at those points in bold that I made as well within the video, and think about those questions. What could you do with regards to those in terms of filling out your answers and making it sort of flow nicely into a strong description? Please pause this video here whilst you complete this question. The next thing we're going to look at is progress and problems in the workplace. So progress with tasks at work. Why do we need to tell colleagues, team leaders, line managers where we're up to with our tasks? Why would we need to tell those people? What about problems with work? Why do we need to tell our colleagues, team leaders or managers when we come across a problem with a task? So firstly, let's have a look at progress at work. So we need to report our progress to our line manager, to our team leader and to our colleagues, because they need to know what's been completed, so what progress you've made on the task, and what still needs completing, what work is left to do. You could be working part-time, or your colleague could be working part-time. They might leave at 3 o'clock each day. They might be working 2 days a week or 3 days a week. If you're not keeping each other up to date at work, it's going to be difficult to manage our time effectively at work, like we looked at previously, because we don't know if we're repeating work that's already been done. We don't want to be doing that, but also we don't want jobs to be forgotten about. We don't want somebody to go on holiday for 2 weeks and they've left a job halfway through only for the deadline to surpass whilst they are away. Monitoring your progress at work is also beneficial for your manager to be able to measure how successful you are in your role. So we talked a little bit before about how measuring your success can be good for passing probation, or perhaps going from a temporary role into a permanent job if there's one available. If you make good progress at work, you could also be given more responsibility from your manager. So perhaps if you are getting through sort of the easier, lower level tasks, perhaps you can be moved up the ranks slightly to begin with. So I would like you to now answer question 2. State the purpose and state why we must keep others informed of progress with our work activities. Please pause this video whilst you complete this question. Problems at work. So we need to keep others involved and informed when we are dealing with problems at work. So we could be reporting problems or letting people know, such as our colleagues, our line managers, our team leaders. But why should we tell these people? So we should be telling our line manager because it gives them the chance to help you or to give you more training. If there is something that you're having trouble with in the workplace, perhaps it's a piece of equipment that you just can't get your head around. Perhaps they've issued you a new phone and it's not working the same as your old one, or perhaps there's a new database been brought out and it's difficult for you to import data from the last database, and perhaps you just need a bit of training there just to strengthen your ability to do your job, to progress in your job. It gives you a chance to say that you're having an issue. So what we don't want is for people to go into a workplace that's hostile, because you need a manager who's going to be open and listen to your problems. We don't want tasks to become stuck. So if you feel that you can't approach somebody to tell them that you're having problems at work, then that task can't be completed and the problem can't be fixed, so nothing ends up getting finished. If you're reporting problems on, this can have an impact on the rest of the team positively, whereas if you're not reporting problems on, it can have a negative impact on the rest of your team. So now I'd like you to complete question 3. So state the purpose and state why we must keep others informed of problems with our work activities. Please pause this video whilst you complete this question. Instructions at work. So anywhere that you work, you need to follow instructions. But why do we have to follow instructions? Why can't we just make up our own rules in the workplace? What dangers could happen if we don't follow the workplace rules? What could happen if you don't follow instructions? Let's have a look at these together. So we must follow instructions because, firstly, there are policies and procedures in place which are essentially your instructions at work. The quality of the work that you produce will be directly impacted by the instructions that you're given. So if you're not following those instructions, the quality of your work could dip. You're going to produce more work if you follow instructions, and it should be easier and quicker to complete that work as well. So why can't we make up our own rules in the workplace? So rules are there to keep the business operating smoothly. Without rules in the workplace, we would all have free rein of making our own rules up, and it would be very difficult to work in a place like that if everybody is working differently to one another. The policies and procedures, like I said before, they're essentially our instructions and they tell us how to do our jobs. There's also health and safety involved when we're following rules, because if we don't follow the rules of the workplace, then health and safety problems can arise, and we'll have a look at those in a moment. And we must listen to authority. So authority, an authoritative figure in the workplace could be your supervisor, your team leader, or your line manager. So what dangers could happen if we are not following instructions? So in terms of health and safety, there's going to be hazards in the workplace. So it could be that you are, if you're not following instructions, perhaps you've not put something away and it becomes a trip hazard for somebody else. If you're not using, even like your bin next to you, if somebody comes along, they could trip over your rubbish. Misuse of equipment could be sort of swinging on a chair. It could be using a table to try and reach the ceiling to fix a light or something like that. A table is not made for that use in the workplace. There may also be a lack of training available. So if you are not able to follow instructions, or perhaps you work in a workplace where there is a culture of not following instructions, there's going to be a lack of training for new staff who are coming in, because the managers may not even give you that training if there is, one of these workplaces where it's make up your own rules. None of us want to work in a place like that. So what could happen if you're not following these instructions? So the job could be done incorrectly, which means that you're going to have to do the work again. You might not meet the standards of the work. You might not do the work that's been required of you. It might be low quality, there might not be enough of it. This could lead to disciplinary meetings. It could mean that you fail probation, and ultimately that you could lose your job. So you can see why it is so important to follow instructions when completing tasks at work. What we don't want is for you to end up losing a job because of not following instructions. Even if there is a culture of not following instructions, it's important that you try your best to follow those instructions, especially for health and safety, and we're going to look more at health and safety next week. So please now outline why it's important to follow instructions in the workplace when completing tasks, and show what could happen if we don't follow instructions at work. Today's learning activity log, you're going to have today's date. Under your learning aim, you're going to have customer service. Activities of what I learned, so we've looked at progress and problems at work. Your next session is on employee responsibilities in business administration, and then if you can pop tomorrow's date for your next session, that would be great. Your aims and objectives for today's session should now be met. You should now be able to demonstrate the importance of reporting progress and problems to your colleagues, to your team leaders, and to your managers at work. And you should now be able to outline why it is important to follow instructions at work and to show what could happen if you're not following those instructions.